Hello everybody, CJ Automotive Services back again. Today we got a 1970 Chevrolet C10. It's got a 6.0 LQ4 motor in it, and it's got some lifter chatter. So we're going to be removing this and probably just rebuilding the whole thing. Got co-star Kyle McCoy over here helping us out. So stay tuned and we're going to show you step by step how to get this done. First things first, guys, what I'm doing, I went ahead and already removed the cold air intake. It just got the two little plugs on it with a flat tip screwdriver. But I'm just gonna go ahead and just start removing this whole wiring harness. It's like, you know, for all your coil packs, injectors, other sensors and everything. So, I mean, it's gonna probably be routed differently depending on which harness you got and really however you routed it, because this is custom. So yeah, I'm just gonna start with removing all that and get back to you after that's done. All right, guys, if you do have a wiring harness that's like this, so this goes down to the injectors. It's got this little metal clip on it. So instead of unplugging it from way down there at the injector itself, then all you gotta do is disconnect it from here. It makes it a little bit easier. But to get this off, all you gotta do is press in this tab, and you see the ear, it comes out like that. And I'm gonna try to see if I can demonstrate this for you on the camera. But, 1 second. So I'm gonna press this in and then pull this clip up and over like so. And it should just pop right off. That's how you remove that clip, and then you can pull this apart. All right, as y'all can see, we got some of this main harness undone. There's like injectors and then like the main coil, the coil pack plug right there, the main power supply. So what I'm gonna do now is remove these coil packs. And what we're gonna do first is you're just gonna take these spark plug wires, pull them down. Oh, this one's kind of stuck. But these just pull straight down, all of them. And then you can actually remove all these coil packs as a whole assembly. So you don't have to worry about unplugging any of these wires right here. This one doesn't have it, but you're supposed to have like a 10mm bolt there. And then there's a nut there. We only have the one that is, where's that? Right here. And there's another one over here and right there. So once you remove those 10mm and you pull all these spark plug wires down, then all of these coil packs will come out together. As you can see, we've got it removed. This is what it should look like. All the coil packs are still plugged in. They're all still bolted to this bracket, and it just lifts up and removes. Now on this side, with the brake booster, probably gonna have to remove this coil pack right here, because when we're trying to remove it, it's hitting on the brake booster. So if you got that, you may have to remove that one on this side, but on the other, it should just be straight up and out. All right, guys, for the fuel, not the fuel line, the throttle cable, you're gonna be pressing in that tab right there on the top, and then removing it just like so. And it's free. You're gonna bring it around that little spindle right there, and then pull it straight off. And now that line is free. Okay, so now we're removing this fuel line. Ours is gonna be probably different than yours. So we have one that we can just unscrew it. So if you have one that's like that as well, then you'll just need to find whatever size that you have. Ours is 11/16 on the line side, and then 5/8 on the other end. Make sure you got a drip pan. But for those of you that do not have one of those, and it's one of those quick connect, then you're gonna need a tool like this. There's also some other ones. They're just fuel line disconnectors. And this line right here for us is a 3/8, probably the same for you guys. Now, if you have that, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take it and you're gonna pinch it in, push it forward, and then pull the line straight off. Sometimes you have to push the line in as well as you're doing that in order to get it off. So that's how you'll do it if you've got a quick disconnect hose. All right, guys, last two things we're gonna remove before we get to the actual bolts for it is we're gonna go ahead and remove the brake booster vacuum hose, which is right here. We're just gonna use a normal pair of pliers to remove that and pull it straight off. And then this little plug right here, push up, remove. Simple as that. And also, there's a hose down here that we'll probably remove because we're gonna try to just take off the throttle body, fuel rail, and everything with this thing. So you may have to remove this hose. There's two of them down there. There's one and there's one. If you can get some needle nose or some pliers right there, we're just gonna pull it off. This one that way, that one this way, and then we'll start taking off the mounting bolts. All right, guys, so for this hose down here, I'm using these 90-degree pliers to get a hold of that hose clamp. It's right there, and then I'm just gonna squeeze it down and then pull it this way towards the alternator. And then this hose, the clamp is facing up towards the throttle body, so instead I'm gonna remove it from there. Now, proceed with caution because this is a coolant hose that goes from one side to the other, so there will be maybe a little tiny bit of coolant coming through, especially if your engine is a little bit hot, but for the most part you should be fine. It's not going to let out too much coolant if there is some in there, so just so you know. All right, guys, now for the intake bolts. Like I said, you've got one there, and if you just follow it back, you've got, I believe, 5 on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 5 on each side. So some of these may be a little bit hard to get to, depending on how your engine sits in your truck. Some of them are back a little bit further, so you may need to use like a extension with a universal joint. But for us, it's pretty simple to get to. So I recommend using maybe a 6-inch extension, 8mm socket. If you got a power tool, good for you. If not, use a ratchet. So we'll get these off and then get back to you. Get out of the way. Straight up and out. Okay, so as you can see, the intake is removed, sitting over here. If your engine looks like this as soon as you remove the intake, I highly recommend immediately get a shop vac and start vacuuming all this stuff up, because you don't want none of that stuff getting in those ports right there. So go ahead and do that if it looks like that. All right, guys, after y'all get it cleaned up or whatever, next thing we're gonna do is remove the knock sensors, or the harnesses for them. So these just pull straight up, and as you can see, a rat or something messed this one up. This wire is all exposed, and this was actually broken. Whenever we were vacuuming, the suction just pulled it straight up. So these are just little rubber caps that go over those holes, and you can just pull them straight up. And then to actually remove the harness for the knock sensors, you just got to get like a pair of pliers down in there or something. Maybe you can squeeze your hand, and all you got to do is just pinch the sides of this and then pull it straight up. It doesn't have like a clip or nothing like that. So I used these, and I kind of had it down there in an angle like that, and just pinch the sides of it like that, and then pull it straight up. So just right there, that's where you want to pinch it. All right, guys, next thing we're gonna remove, there's a ground right here. It goes on this bolt on the back of the head. Sorry, it goes right there. That's a 15mm bolt. You're gonna remove this ground. And then also there's this little line right here, which is a 10mm. So we remove that. And then you have your oil pressure sensor right here, or oil pressure sending unit. And you're gonna just push that tab up and pull it straight back. And this whole top harness right here, just for the top, is completely free at this point. So that's everything you need to do to completely free up that wiring harness. All right, guys, the next thing we're gonna be doing is drain the coolant. As you can see, we've already started. So usually there's like a drain cock that's down here at the bottom, I guess on your right-hand side of the truck. So ours didn't have it, so we had to remove the bottom hose and the radiator kind of cracked down there because it's really old. We already have a new one for it. And yeah, we kind of made a little bit of a mess. So you may need to get you a bigger drip pan or whatever, and then drain it from there. Or if you have a petcock, then that's going to be of best interest. So go ahead and drain that, and then get all the coolant out of this bottom line, and then we'll keep removing the other hoses. So next hose we're going to take off after that bottom one is going to be this one right here, which we just had a normal, well, not normal, but we had just a little clamp like that. So we're going to pull that one off, and then that one also comes to right here. So we just removed that one just like that. We went ahead and just took that off, so that way there's no more hoses going to be attached to the motor. We're also going to remove this hose as well. If you have a heater core or something, then these hoses will be running up to the firewall somewhere. Ours is just ran to itself because we do not have a heater core, so no need for us to remove that. But for those of you that do have it, you're going to need to remove those two hoses right there. All right, everybody, so we got the radiator hoses removed from the engine. Now we're just going to remove this nifty little overflow hose in our nifty little overflow tank right here. Not very big, but yeah, this isn't the exact order. If y'all want to drain fluids before you take any of this off, you know, more than welcome. This is the order we decided to go through. So after we remove that hose, we're going to remove the radiator. So we got 2 bolts on this bracket, 2 bolts on the other side as well for the supports, and those are 1/2 inch for us. For those of you that do have a fan clutch, you're gonna first need to probably remove your fan shroud if you have one, and then also pop that fan clutch off the water pump. For us, we have an electric fan, so I already unplugged it, and it's mounted inside the radiator fin, so it's just gonna come straight up with the radiator. So after you remove that hose over there, and then remove those 4 bolts, this radiator should just come straight up and lift out of its little mounts down there. All right, guys, y'all don't have to do this, but we're gonna remove the core support and the front grille. Y'all don't have to actually do that if you don't want to. We're just doing it for easier access. So first thing we're gonna have to do is remove this little piece right here that's got the windshield wipers. So we're gonna have to disconnect the windshield wipers. Then also there's a couple bolts. We already removed it, but there's one here, one on the other side. Then you've got some flat tip screws that holds that in. And the reason why you have to remove this is because you'll need to remove this fender out of the way, which is just a few bolts over here, to remove that core support. All right, guys, to remove the windshield wiper, we're using use pliers like this. You're just gonna wedge it right under it and then pull up. Pry it off of that little piece right there. Hey guys, one thing I forgot to mention, you do have to open the door and remove this little bolt that's right there. I believe it's a 1/2 inch. So to get this off, you do have to take off the windshield wipers, the screws that I did show you, and then you got to open the door and get this one off, and then it should come right off. All right, guys. So for the fender, you've got this bolt that's right here, directly under the tire. So you got to remove this, and then here on the top, you've got this one, this one. So 3 bolts for the back, and then the front of the fender will show you those bolts whenever we start removing the core support. All right, now what we're gonna try to work on doing is removing the grill and core support. Our screws are all screwed up here because they're so old, so we gotta do it a little bit harder. There's 2 bolts that are back there. They're 1/2 inch. You can get to them with like an extension and a ratchet if you can bring it out to like right here-ish. And then, yeah, we just remove those, and then we'll move on from there. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna also remove these 2 bolts with the hood hinge. And there's some more at the bottom down here. These are all the same size, 1/2 inch. And then directly below where you removed on this side, there's gonna be some at the bottom, way down. Bad view. I'll get a better view in a second. All right, guys, here's the bolts I was saying that were bad view. There's gonna be 2 right there, 1, 2, and then on both sides, it's gonna be like that. So once you do that, this little support should come off. All right, guys, next we're gonna be removing our little pigtails for the lights, and then also remove this little bulb on both sides. And then we're gonna also remove the bezels around here, some little Phillips 4 screws, both sides. All right, so this harness just tucks straight up into here actually. So you can just pull that out. And then you also got these little wires right here. They just unplug, pull right apart. We already had it unplugged, but they just pull right apart. And then we removed this with an 8mm, if y'all do have that. And pulled all the horn wires off. So now we're gonna finish trying to get this core support loose. All right, guys, for core support, we're gonna have 2 bolts on each side. If you're looking at the side of the truck, we have 2 over here, 2 over that way where he's at. And you got 1 right here at the bottom. There is a nut on the bottom side of that one. And is that all the ones you removed so far? Yeah, so I believe that's it. And then hopefully this should be loose. So we'll work on getting that. We're gonna go ahead and just remove this bumper just for the hell of it, because it's only 2 bolts. Just get it out of the way. So just gonna remove that and then get into the engine. All right, next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna pull this dipstick off, and ours is already disconnected because this little bracket right here was messed up. So after you remove the little bolt that holds that in, which you probably already did earlier in the video, all you gotta do is lift straight up and it pops right out. So that's how you're gonna remove the dipstick. After you remove the dipstick, we're gonna go ahead and remove these headers right here. We may go ahead and just remove the exhaust on both ends first, just that way they're there, but yeah, I don't know. That's what we're gonna work on right now. All right, we're gonna wait to remove the exhaust pipe because it's kind of a pain to get to those bottom bolts with the headers on them. So try to get the engine out of the way and then remove the headers after that. So now we're gonna work on taking off all the engine accessories. Probably start off here with a water pump. And then this whole bracket is pretty much gonna come off together. So let's take that stuff off, leave the harmonic balancer on for now, and we'll be right back. I'll show you something real quick. So normally right here, there's a power steering mount bolt. It is not on this one. So y'all are gonna need to remove that bolt right there for sure. And then also the power steering lines themselves, which those will probably have to get from under the vehicle because they're very hard to access from this point. So we're gonna get these lines off, and then he's going ahead and breaking all these water pump bolts loose right now. Which were those, what size are these? 10 millimeters for the water pump. So we'll go. All right, so the power steering line that's on the back is a 5/8, and then this one right here, you're just gonna have to remove it with some pliers. So that's how you're gonna remove these lines. And then you can see by him removing those water pump bolts, removes that whole entire section right there. Where is it at? Those bolts remove all of this. So you don't need to take out the thermostat or, you know, thermostat housing, tension pulley, none of that. It'll all come off together. All right, so to remove this, you're gonna have a 15 millimeter socket. 1, 2, 3, normally 4 15 millimeters right there. And then, like I showed y'all earlier, you will have a bolt right there. So after you do all that and you disconnect your lines, this whole assembly will come off the front of the engine. All right, we're gonna start working on removing the starter. So this first one right down here with the battery wire, that's gonna be a 9/16 to remove that. And then right up here, this other small one, that's going to be an 8mm. Take a picture before you remove this stuff so you don't forget where the wires go. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. All right, so after you remove the wires, then you're gonna get a 15mm socket and remove those two bolts that are right there holding the starter on. After that, you should be able to just slide it right out and then move it to the side. Ow! All right guys, now what we're doing is we're gonna go ahead and drain the oil out. It's just a 15mm. So we're just getting this thing ready to get pulled. All right guys, now there is some O2 sensors, so you just need to unplug. So go ahead and unplug those. And for us, we have a standard transmission, so we don't have torque converter bolts to remove. For those of you that do have automatic transmission, you're gonna have to be under the vehicle, and there's usually an access plate that you can remove. And then from there, you'll remove your torque converter bolts. You'll have to spin the engine, you know, to get the bolts out and all that. So we don't have to do that. So we're just going to remove all the bell housing bolts, and we're gonna get a jack to support the transmission under there. So we'll do that and then we'll be right back. All right guys, so we've got all the bell housing bolts removed. Now we don't have like the nice little fancy, you know, little LS thing that, you know, takes place of the valley cover. So what we're gonna do is this ground that is back here, that was back there where we removed the bolt, but the ground that you removed earlier, we're gonna use that for a point on the chain. And then we have another bolt from the bell housing that'll go on the back end. And then the bell housing bolts will also screw in there and right there. We're gonna have 4 points of contact and then lift it with the chain. All right guys, right here on the back of the head, you've got your bell housing bolt screwed in, and then the same place on the other side. Now here on the front, you've got this point of the head, a bell housing bolt, same exact place on this side. So we're not gonna like put too much tension on it. We're just gonna get the slack out of the chain, and then we're gonna remove these motor mount bolt and nut on both sides, and then this thing should be ready to come out. All right guys, as you can see, we've got our engine lifted. The jack is supporting the bottom of the transmission down here, and we've created our gap. So all we need to do is slide it back. We just had to shake it around a little bit, get a pry bar in there just to open it up just a hair, and then we shook it some more to create this gap. So once you get here, you're just gonna be sliding it out this way, lifting it, making sure oil pan doesn't get caught on the cross member, and that is it for removing the engine. All right guys, engine's free. We're gonna maneuver this thing around so we can place it on the engine stand, and then we'll try to tie up some of this stuff and get this truck out of here. All right guys, in order to get this engine to fit on the engine stand, we had to remove the pressure plate and the clutch. So to remove that, it's these 12mm bolts that goes all the way around the flywheel. And then since we are gonna tear the whole engine apart, we're also gonna remove the flywheel, which are 1/2 inch, 12-point bolts right here. So we're gonna remove this and then place it on the engine stand. All right guys, so here on the engine stand, as you can see, we've got bolts going through right there where the bell housing bolts would normally be, and also right there. Now the bolts that we use are actually from the engine. So 3 of the bolts are the alternator bracket bolts, because that one that we were missing, we didn't have 4. So the last bolt that we used was actually a starter bolt. So in order to make them all work, we did have to put 2 nuts here just to give it some space, because they're not threaded all the way through. So that's what we have. If you guys have better solutions, then you know, y'all can do whatever y'all want to do, but that's what we did, just in case if y'all are looking for bolts, y'all can use what was on the engine. So that's it so far. Thanks for watching part 1. Check out part 2 for the engine teardown. Thank you everybody for watching.